What's going on YouTube? So today we've got the all-new 2023 Honda Pilot, but this time we have the base LX trim level.
And we want to know, does this $36,000 Honda Pilot mix a lot of value and features for the money?
Well, let's go ahead and find out. So let's get things started here with our spec dump. Now, one of the things that's really nice about this LX Pilot is that it has the exact same engine as all the rest of the trim levels in the Pilot lineup. That's an all-new 3.5 liter V6 engine, 285 horsepower, 262 pound-feet of torque.
It's also going to be paired to a new 10-speed automatic transmission, front-wheel drive or optional all-wheel drive for the LX trim level, and it's rated at 22 miles a gallon combined.
Well, let's go ahead, close up the hood, and take a look at the exterior. So for this next generation of Honda Pilot, they really wanted to make things look a lot tougher, boxier, and more rugged. And honestly, here with the LX, it really plays well with that theme. So up here in the front, what are you gonna get? Basically the same thing you get in most of the other trim levels. This does have a matte black finish here on the grille, so that looks a little bit cheaper, but we still have the chrome trim that's gonna go all across the top and through there. We also have the chrome accent down here in your lower area as well. One of the things I really like though is that the LX trim level is still gonna give you premium LED lighting. So you'll notice we have the same LED reflector lighting as the other models. We have a LED daytime running light and an LED turn signal, so that's a thumbs up from me. One thing that you will notice is different though is this is the only trim level that won't have LED fog lamps. Now, as far as the rear design of the LX Pilot, you actually won't notice very much different at all about the LX version.
Yeah, so you're still going to have that signature Pilot look that, of course, is all new this year, and I think it looks really good, especially here in person. We have a spoiler up top still, we have exposure wipers, and then let's check out our taillights and see if all of the elements are still going to be LED or if we have the same amount. So we have an LED brake light portion, incandescent reverse light, incandescent turn signal indicator. So this is actually the same taillight unit that you see on every Honda Pilot model. One out of the three elements are LED. I would like for it to be a full LED taillight, but that's not available on any Pilot, so you're getting the same taillight unit at least for going with the LX model. Now, in between the taillights, we do have a nice piano black finish with Pilot spelled out across the back. Dropping down to this lower area, all of this is going to be finished in a rugged matte black plastic. I do want to point out no faux exhaust tips on the LX version of the Pilot. Some versions of the Pilot can get the faux exhaust tips, which I do think it looks a little bit better that way. And as far as your tow rating is concerned, it's 3,500 pounds for front drive or 5,000 pounds if you go for all-wheel drive like this model.
And by the way, this review is just focused on the LX trim level, but we do have another one on our channel that really digs in deep to all the other trim levels if you want to check that out. But bringing our focus now to the wheel options, we do have an 18-inch alloy wheel here with the LX trim level. This is going to have more of a plain silver finish to it as compared to some of the other trims like the EXL, which will have a contrast finish. Now, as we move up here to the mirrors, these are going to have a matte black look on them. They're also not going to have any features, so you're not going to have blind spot monitoring on the LX trim level. You also won't have heating, and of course, power folding and auto dimming are going to be reserved for your top end trim levels.
Now, if you've been watching some of our Honda reviews, you know that Honda thinks bigger is better, because for all of their all-new models, they've been lengthening them and making them bigger. That's going to be the case for this all-new Pilot, 199.9 inches, which is about 3 inches longer than the previous version. Of course, that's going to continue for the LX trim level. And as far as some of the design elements, it's all going to be finished in just kind of this black finish, no chrome pieces going on for the LX model. I do also want to point out no roof rails. You have to go to the higher end trim levels to get that. Now, one of the things that you won't have to go to the higher trim levels to get are your safety systems. Honda's nicely including all 4 of your active safety features as standard equipment on the Pilot, so yes, that does include this LX trim level. But guys, there's a practical interior waiting for you on the inside, so let's go ahead and dive into that before we take it out in a spin.
So let's go ahead and climb inside. One of the nice things about the LX Pilot is that it actually does still come standard with Honda's smart entry system. This is what the fob looks like. There is one difference though. You don't have remote start built into the fob like you do with the other trim levels. Nevertheless, you can just walk up to the truck, put your hand behind the handle, that's going to unlock the door, and take a look at that all new cabin design for this new generation. First off here, let's go ahead and talk about these seats. Now, obviously, as you can see, these are gonna be cloth seats. You pretty much expect that, but one of the things I really like about this is how much stitching detail Honda has put into these seats. So we actually have quilted bolstering that runs down through there, as well as our seat bottom. We have a lot of different stitching details and textures going on, but the seats themselves are still very comfortable and has a nice durable feel to it. One difference you're gonna notice though is the fact that these are manual adjusting seats, whereas all the other trim levels of the Pilot will have power adjusting seats. But let's go ahead and climb inside, look at all the other details. Now you're probably thinking, Drew, what's cheaper inside of this cabin because it is the LX, the most affordable model? Well, actually, surprisingly little. So let's dig into the materials. We'll start out over here with our door trim. You will notice that we have a piece of cloth here for the armrest portion. However, the center section is going to be finished in a leatherette. We have soft touch plastic along the top, and we have piano black accenting throughout. As far as the windows, by the way, there are going to be one touch auto up and down for all four. Moving to the upper dashboard, nice textured plastic through here. We do have a leatherette material running through the center section, and this has a stitching detail. Looks pretty nice. And then down here at the lower part, this is of course going to be hard touch, but everything does feel super solid as we expect from all Honda products. Now to fire it up, you do still have push button start, so just press the button. Now let's go ahead and move into a first-person perspective and take a look at all the details. We'll start with our gauge cluster. So the LX trim level comes with basically the same gauge cluster as the vast majority of the other trim levels. This is the half digital, half analog setup. All but the Elite trim level have this arrangement. And you can reconfigure all the same settings, including things regarding your safety systems and see things like your all-wheel drive system. Now pulling back to the steering wheel, this is the only trim level that is going to have the urethane steering wheel. So all the rest of them will be leather wrapped. Otherwise, it is the same design. It is still manual, tilt, and telescoping. Let's go ahead and take a look at interior storage. Of course, the Pilot is very utilitarian, and that does not change with the LX trim level. We have tons of center console storage. It's really wide, it's really deep. It has a lining down there at the bottom. And when we're hauling around all of our kids, we can save money by choosing the LX trim level and save money on food with our big stack of coupons. Up in front of that, we've got our two cup holders. We have another really large storage area. This is rubber lined. Of course, it won't have a wireless phone charging pad like some of the other trims, but it does still have our USB connections up there and a 12-volt outlet. Coming back to the shifter, this is the latest electronic style shifter. Just push the D for drive. You can press it again for sport mode, and you do have paddle shifters on the steering wheel as well. Pull the trigger for reverse. And when you go into reverse, you have a standard backup camera. The backup camera does also include active trajectory and 3 different angles you can switch between, but of course you're not going to have parking sensors or a 360 on the LX trim level. Press the P for park. Right behind that, you do have an electronic parking brake and a brake hold function. You also have your button to turn on and off auto start stop, as well as switch to different drive modes. Now as we move up the dashboard, next place we come to are our climate controls. Just like the other versions of the Pilot, we do have a 3-zone automatic climate setup. Very simple, just adjust these knobs for the temperature adjustments. You can also adjust the rear by using that button right there. You will notice though that we do not have heated seats. This is the only version of the Pilot that won't come standard with heated seats. Now if you like physical controls, rejoice, because this does have a physical volume knob to control the 7-speaker sound system. So let's go ahead and give that a sample, see what it sounds like. Of course, this is not as good as the Bose sound system you get on the upper end trim levels, but overall, it's not too shabby for this price point. Especially if you're not super big into audio, I don't think you'll be bothered by it. All right, so now let's turn our attention up here to our display. So with the LX trim level, as well as the Sport trim level, you're gonna get this 7-inch display. The other trim levels will come with a 9-inch display. There are, of course, quite a bit of differences when it comes to this display. You'll notice that we have a lot of physical controls down here. That's because it doesn't really have the Honda Link infotainment software, so there's no home screen or anything like that. This is the only way you kind of switch between the different sections is by pressing all those buttons down there at the bottom. One nice thing to note is that you will have Android Auto and Apple CarPlay abilities. They do require a wired connection though. Moving above, we have a manual dimming mirror. You've got LED lighting. We have a place for our sunglasses, but at the top, of course, you are not going to find a sunroof.
Well, it's always a pleasure to be in the Honda Pilot's rear seat because it is just filled with a lot of practicality and space for the family. So let's go ahead and dive into that first before we talk about what features you're going to get on the LX. 40.8 inches of legroom, 40.2 inches of headroom. Really good figures for the class. It is going to be less than the Hyundai Palisade and the Kia Telluride, right on par with that of the Toyota Highlander though. This seat is adjusted to Drew, who's 5'8", I'm 5'9", and we are looking at a solid about 10 inches of space between my knees and the seat back. So really good figures. I mean, unless you're really tall, you're going to be plenty comfortable in the Pilot's rear seat. My feet can easily slide up underneath the seat too. I mean, we have about a foot of space between the floor and the top of the seat. Now, I do want to point out, each rear seat can slide forward and back. It can also recline a good distance as well. So you can really take a great nap. I'm sure a lot of parents will like their kids to be asleep so they're not pestering them. Now, as far as here in the center, we do have vents. Now, the unique thing about the Pilot is that on the base trim level, so this LX model as well as the Sport, you do have 3-zone climate, but you're not going to have controls for it here in the back. So the controls of, adjusting your own temperature back here, that's going to be reserved for the higher end models. And then dropping down below that, we have 2 USB ports, which is nice to see on the very base model. Another nice feature to see on the very base model is this middle seat area. So as you can see, we have bench seating, no captain's chairs for the LX, as you would expect, but we do still get the functionality of folding this down. This is our armrest. It's a very nice armrest portion. We have 2 cup holders inside, more storage, maybe put some coupons in there. One thing I do want to point out is that reserved for the Touring and the Elite trim levels is the removability of this middle seat. So those models give you the removing middle seat that you can actually store in the back if you want to have captain's chairs instead of, the bench seating setup. That's not going to be on this LX model. Now, turning to your door trim, we do have a decent one. We are going to cheap out in the materials a little bit. Hard touch on the upper part, hard touch in the middle portion as well. We do have a cloth armrest portion, no rear window sunshades. We do have a lot of storage though. 2 cup holders right in front of that. We have a little storage behind that, and then even more space down in the very bottom. So once again, like I'm saying, this Pilot is all about the practicality, and you can definitely see that here for the LX. Now let's go ahead and check out the Pilot's third row. Now, like I said, this is about practicality. So Honda's made it real easy to get into the third row. You just push this button right here. It folds the seat and slides it all out of the way in one fluid motion. I love that. Hondas and Acuras do that better than pretty much anyone else. Now, sitting back here in the third row itself, very good amount of space. So this all-new Pilot really is emphasizing really having a lot of space, and we're looking at 32 inches of legroom, 38 inches of headroom. If you're curious as to how that compares with its main competition, so the Toyota Highlander is going to be 5 inches larger in terms of legroom. It's going to be 1 inch larger in terms of legroom compared to Telluride and Palisade. So this is one of the largest third rows you can get. And as you can see, I'm very comfortable. So I have space. Even with this seat slid all the way back, I still have a little bit of legroom, which is very impressive. I also do have space to put my feet up underneath the seat, so I'm quite comfortable. The only thing I'll complain about is the thigh support is just okay. It's not fantastic. Now, as far as practical features, we have 2 cup holders on each side. We do also have vents integrated here in the back pillar. And I do want to point out, as far as on our rating scale, This is going to fall in the adult category. I think this is fit for adults, but it's not quite king category because we don't have a lot of features back here. Walking up to the tailgate, we do have a manually opening one on LX. Trim levels, of course, you can get a power one, you can get foot activation as well. And as far as the space is concerned back here, 18 cubic feet behind the third row seats. If we fold these puppies down, we're looking at about 49 cubic feet of cargo capacity, and as a maximum, we're looking at 87 cubic feet with all the seats folded down. So very good cargo figures. That actually is quite a bit better than Toyota Highlander. It's going to tie the Kia Telluride, a little bit better than Palisades. This is one of the largest offerings within the entire segment, unless you go for like something like a Chevy Traverse, which has more cargo capacity. Now, as far as how they finished it, we do have quite a bit of underfloor storage. As you can see, this is pretty deep. I'd say it's about 6 inches deep, and it goes all the way across the entire cargo floor. And then, as you saw me manually fold the third row seats, power folding is actually not available on any trim level of the Pilot. And I do want to point out there are not any levers to fold the second row seats from back here, so I will have to go up there and manually fold those down. And I got my measuring tape out because you sometimes just need to measure things. So we're looking at about 87 inches of space behind the driver's seat all the way back to the rear of the cargo area, which actually does match the maximum cargo figure. So you have 87 cubic feet, 87 inches of space, which is probably good for about an 80-inch flat screen TV in the rear of this Pilot. So certainly very impressive when it comes to practicality. Well guys, here we are behind the wheel of the Honda Pilot LX. We're excited to show you what's under the hood of this LX model because, like we said at the spec dump, it has the same powertrain as other Honda Pilots. So in this drive, we'll be talking about a lot of different things. You can see that on the screen right now. We will also be getting our sound level reading, but we'll start out with a hard acceleration and see what it's like driving this Honda Pilot. Nice.
60 miles per hour.
Very nice.
And then a little
brake
bit
check.
of a brake test as well, which are also quite strong. But yeah, that's really kind of a big thing, I think. A lot of models in this segment are coming standard with smaller displacement engines. This still has a traditional V6. Not only that, but even with the LX trim level, you still get the traditional V6 with the same amount of power as all the other trim levels, so you're not penalized or given some type of weak engine. Yeah, and it's nice, smooth, and refined, just like we've complimented it on in all the past times that we've been driving the all-new Pilot.
So what is it? Well, it's an all-new 3.5 liter V6. So even though it's the same displacement as the previous outgoing Honda Pilot, it is an all-new engine. It's going to make 5 more horsepower, 285 horsepower, 262 pound-feet of torque. Those are very healthy numbers for this segment. We've been in pretty much every single rival in this segment, and this is one of the best V6 offerings that you can get. It's nice and refined. Plenty powerful enough, and as you'll see throughout this drive, it really just kind of does a good job of just blending into the background.
Even without matting the throttle, you really have plenty of power on board. Let's also talk about the other aspect of the powertrain. We have a new 10-speed automatic transmission. This is Honda's in-house developed transmission. So if you remember the previous generation, you had the ZF 9-speed automatic. This is Honda's own 10-speed automatic. They've been using it in some of their other products, such as the Honda Odyssey and the Acura MDX. Here in this application, it is excellent, just like it is in those other products. Nice and smooth. It seems a lot more confident in itself than the previous ZF. Nice shift logic so that it doesn't seem confused or anything like that.
And even here on the LX model, you can opt for front-wheel drive or all-wheel drive, so you don't get locked into front drive or anything like that for picking this base model. I like that Honda gives you that option. And that does mean you have 2 different fuel economy ratings. So front drive's rated at 19, 27, 22 combined. All-wheel drive is going to be 19, 25, 21 miles a gallon combined, which in terms of the fuel economy compared to some of the rivals, it's not fantastic. It's all right fuel economy for V6 offerings. Some of the turbo 4-cylinders will get you better fuel economy now. I really wish Honda would add a hybrid version or a plug-in hybrid, but we do not have that on any Pilot at this current time.
And Mason was just mentioning fuel economy, so I think I'll mention the auto start-stop system. Really nice and smooth on this new model. They've done a lot of improvements, I think, to really smooth it out. You hardly feel it at all when it's turning on or off.
Yeah, it does a good job. Alrighty, now it's time to talk about what all these family 3-row SUVs are for. Really just kind of cruising down the road, the comfort aspect of it. And if you've watched our previous Honda Pilot reviews, you will know that we gave it high praise for its ride quality because it does a really good job. Now, for this LX model, I'm not really noticing too many differences as compared to a Pilot Elite or a Pilot Trail Sport, which we've also been behind the wheel of. It's still a very comfortable overall ride experience. It does a good job of soaking up the bumps and not much of that entering into the cabin. The one thing I will point out is I don't think that this cloth seat is quite as soft as what you get on the higher end model. Sometimes the cloth seats are actually very soft and comfortable. This one's going to be a little bit more on the firmer side. I'd like it to be a little bit more comfortable, so do keep that in mind if you're someone that really likes a soft seat. This LX model might disappoint you a little bit when it comes to the seat itself, but overall ride quality is very good. And we'll speed up to 55 miles an hour so we can get a sound level reading so we can compare it to some of the other rivals when it comes to the sound department. Looks like we're settling in here at 58.3 decibels as our official Car Confections sound level reading. That is pretty solid for this segment. It's not fantastic, but it's okay for sure. It's a little bit less than what we tested out for the Honda Pilot Elite model, but do keep in mind that was in Arizona where the roads are quite a bit rougher than back here in Kentucky. So I'd say that the LX model might be a little bit louder in general as compared to the higher end versions of the Pilot, but not too bad overall. It's just going to be kind of middle of the pack when it comes to the rest of the class. And one of the other things that we like to do at Car Confections is our Slam Dunk and Airball, our favorite element, our least favorite element. Let's go ahead and dive into the Slam Dunk. Now, the Slam Dunk for the LX, I think, has just got to be that most of the stuff that you get on the fully loaded Pilot is actually here on this model that cost about $14,000 less. So certainly you're getting a lot of value baked into this LX model with the standard V6 powertrain. You have
especially the space.
All the space.
The space is probably the most important thing to families. You still have that on board with the LX, of course. We will say the one thing though, the Airball is going to be the display. That's going to be the one thing I would probably miss more than anything, because the 7-inch display is just very, very, very small. Dim.
Yeah.
It doesn't have much functionality, as you saw when we did the interior section. I think, that could be a big con because, of course, everybody's very tech-focused these days. You're probably going to miss that 9-inch display if you go for this trim level.
And lastly, let's talk about the warranty. Honda's going to protect their models by a 3-year, 36,000-mile basic warranty, 5-year, 60,000-mile powertrain warranty. Additionally, you are also going to get 2 years and 24,000 miles of complimentary maintenance, which was a feature they added, I think, last model year for all of their Honda products, which is certainly very nice. And the part you've been waiting on, the price. I did mention it at the introduction of this video, but the LX is of course the most affordable Pilot that you can get, and it's going to have a starting price of around $36,000. Now, we have the all-wheel drive model, so we start at $38,050 plus our $1345 destination. We're looking at $39,850 as tested. So even this all-wheel drive model with destination is coming in under $40,000, which is very impressive for this segment of vehicle. Now, of course, you have a lot of different other trim levels if you would prefer to get one of the higher-end ones, going all the way up to the Elite all-wheel drive, which starts at $52,000, and with destination will be about $54,000. So about $14,000 difference in price compared to this one versus a fully loaded Elite model. But guys, we hope you enjoyed watching this in-depth review of the 2023 all-new Honda Pilot in its base LX trim level. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please hit that subscribe button down below, because we cover a lot of different cars on this channel. We cover base models, we cover high-end models, we do comparisons. All of the good stuff will be featured on this channel, so I promise you won't regret subscribing. If you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for your continued support, because you make this all possible. Anyway, we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.